Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. So today I wanted to start out a new series, and I wanted to have a little bit of fun with it. And this series is going to be going over aspects. There's a lot of aspects in this game. Some of them are very straightforward. Videos are probably going to be very short, and some of them are not so straightforward, and the videos are probably going to be much longer. This one in particular is going to be going over very specific aspects. So each one covering one aspect, and this one is going over the Edgemasters aspect. So the Edgemasters aspect is a very powerful aspect, but it's also very specific to a purpose that you might, need it for. In other words, if you can't utilize Edgemasters for whatever reason, then it's basically garbage to you. And I'll go over all this in a minute here. So first off, let's just read it and see what it says. So the actual aspect part of this is the imprinted part, which is skills deal up to 40% times, which if we actually represent that as an actual number, if you guys are interested in this kind of thing to know exactly how it is multiplying, it's not 40 times, it's 40% times, which 40% times is represented as 1.40 times. So if I had a number, for instance, just as a pretend here, and I multiply that by 1.40, you can figure out exactly how much you're getting. So you take your 5,000 here, and you multiply that by 1.40, and you end up with 7,000. So you get an interesting number. It's not, of course, the other way around, which is 5,000 times 40, which would be absolutely silly because that's 200,000. That's completely different. Now, the Edgemasters is a scaling effect, so it actually scales between 20 to 40%. Now, this is on a two-handed weapon. So it's important to note that aspects like this that are considered to be offensive. I think the offensive aspects is what they're called. And let me see if I have another Edgemasters in here. I usually have an Edgemasters laying around somewhere. But basically, when you look at an aspect, the aspect will actually tell you what it's good for. Like, for instance, this basic skills attack speed is one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons. And notice, right next to two-handed weapons, it says power is increased by 100%. Which means that the Edgemasters is actually only 20%, not 40%. It also says Amulets aspect is increased by 50%. So you can see there. So you can utilize Edgemasters on a one-handed weapon, two-handed weapon, gloves, amulet, and ring. Now, if you are actually getting the full benefit of Edgemasters, you probably want to put it on an amulet or your two-handed weapon, depending. If you don't have that as an option, you can go with another route, like, for instance, throwing it on a ring or a glove slot, and you'll get the base 20% times multiplier. This does scale, however. So, depending on your primary resource, when the ability is cast, receiving the maximum benefit is only when you have your full primary resource. So, for instance, with me here, I have 240 primary resource. So you can literally just take that on a calculator, and I'm pretty sure that if you take 240 and you divide that by 20, which is the base number, you'll get about 12. So about for every 12 primary resource, if it's equal, you would get 1%. So you would get 1% for 12, 1% for 12, 1% for 12. In other words, half would be 120, which you can easily multiply by 10, which is going to get you 120. So half of that is 120, so you're going to be at 10% multiplier. Now, this particular ability is actually, or aspect is actually very, very powerful. If you are a character who does not have to spend resource, and there are tons of these characters throughout the game, like, for instance, my character, who is a basic barbarian, who is utilizing the skill Flay. There are also characters who utilize a wide array of skills. Flay is just one of those. You can also build characters around Frenzy. You can build characters around Bash. You can, in fact, Leon in the Kinship has just recently built a barbarian around Lunging Strike. You may also have nearly infinite resource regeneration, and perhaps you're using something like Ring of the Starless Skies, which refunds you the majority of the cost of the ability when you use it, and makes it so that you can perpetually use that ability forever. In that case, something like Double Swing, or Whirlwind, or Hammer of the Ancients, or even Upheaval could be interesting choices, or Rend, because although they spend resource, and would lower the amount of damage that you would get from Edgemasters, if you are able to maintain a full resource pool even while using these abilities, then you can potentially increase the damage of them by quite a large margin. With Rend, for instance, Rend has a couple different ways that you can refund the resource as you use it. So Furious Rend refunds the Fury per enemy hit up to a maximum of 20. There's also an aspect that you can use, which I'll go over in another video, that allows you to refund your Fury through using Rend. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that you can potentially utilize Edgemasters. And this is just the Barbarian. On other characters, like the Necromancer, you could build a Corpse Explosion Necromancer. You could build a Arc Lash Sorceress for like Ball Lightning. There are tons and tons of ways that you can get a really good effect out of Edgemasters, but it's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be one of those things that you're going to throw on every single character, you know, bar none. It's only going to be used for those characters who have a abundant amount of resources, essentially always full for whatever reason or another, to get that additional bonus. Now, whether you put your Edgemasters on your two-handed weapon, on your amulet, which will be 30% at maximum, or you put it on your gloves or a ring, which will be 20% or maximum, it's a very fine addition to any character that has a basically permanently full resource pool. It goes very well with this particular barbarian, which is why he's using it, because he is a Flay barbarian, and I actually have his build video up, by the way. There are other complementary aspects that go along with this, and it's important to note that depending on your character, you may be utilizing other things with this aspect. So in my case, I'm using Romuladni's Magnum Opus, which has another scaling damage multiplier, which is based off of my maximum resource. So the more maximum resource I have, the more damage I deal, which means that Romuladni's and Edgemasters go very well together. Another very good aspect that goes well together with Romuladni's is the Hoda Barbarian. Hoda has an effect which is called Furious Hammer of the Ancients, which is Hammer of the Ancients deals 1% times additional damage for each point of fury you had while using it. So again, another interesting way that you can set up a character so that they have a huge amount of resource, and you're also giving them another bonus for having that resource. There are other characters in the game that have things like this, and I'd like to show you really quickly the Necromancer. So the Necromancer utilizes a lot of stuff that increases maximum resource, and by increasing maximum resource also increases damage. It also has a lot of bonuses that will tell you that it does a certain amount of damage when fired above a certain amount of resource. And this goes very well with Edgemasters. First off is the Ossified Essence, which is your bone skills deal 0.5% increased damage for each point of essence you have upon above 50 above cast, right? So if you're above 50, you are getting... I got 2 subscribers while making this video. Thank you, Rodrigo and Carson. So the more essence you have when you cast it, the more damage you do, which goes right along with the way that Edgemasters work. So if you're running Edgemasters with a build like this, and you have maximum essence when you fire off your ability, well, you're going to get a huge amount of damage bonus. Bone Spirit also gives you a 3% times for each additional point of essence that you have upon casting Bone Spirit. Again, another rewarding you for having more essence upon cast. And even more so than that, there's Rapid Ossification, which is every 100 essence you spend reduces the cooldowns of your bone skills by 1.5 seconds. Bone Spear also benefits from a lot of these because it is also a bone skill, but it does not have its own modifier. And in this way, you can definitely see that Edgemasters is just one of those aspects that just works really well on certain characters. I believe I have Edgemasters on the Amulet on this character, and the reason why I have Edgemasters on the Amulet on this character is because I'm using the Grandfather. So I don't have a weapon aspect to use for this particular aspect. But this aspect is very powerful for this build because it allows me to charge up and dish out 20, 30 million damage in one Bone Spirit because it gives me an additional modifier on top of all the others that I'm already using for having large amounts of essence. I think that pretty much covers Edgemasters, and I would definitely say that Edgemasters is one of those ones that you probably want to hang on to whenever you find a perfect one, because it does get utilized a lot in a lot of different builds. Although there is a lot to say for the fact that it is basically useless in builds that burn essence like no tomorrow. So if you're constantly at 0 essence, if you find yourself constantly out of essence on a regular basis and you can just never get enough essence, or, you know, spirit or fury or whatever it may be, well, you're just not even going to consider using Edgemasters because it's going to be no good for you. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about aspects. And as always, keep watching.